Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
All right, and welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast. This episode is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. And as always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. All right, it is Tuesday, April. It is April 3rd. Let's see. I always forget how many days it's been without football. So we got 7, 14, 21, 28, 35. Let's see, 35. Let me see, I gotta do this again. 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49, 56, 57, 50, day 58 without football. All right. You guys are always probably saying, why don't you just go listen to the last episode, see what day, and count from there. I don't know. That's the easy way out. We do things, we work here. All right. Yeah, day 58 without football. Feels like free agency was a mere years ago. All right, and now we're waiting for the draft. We're waiting for something. We're waiting to see what draft picks we can be mad about. We're waiting to see what teams did well in the later rounds. We're waiting to see, I guess, who takes the most overrated player. We're going to have a lot of overreactions, going to have a lot of underreactions. You're going to hate what your team did. I'm not going to like what my team did. It's one of the best times of the year. All right? But either way, like I said, day 58. So here we are. But we never run out of stuff to talk about on this show. First segment, Jim Mora made some comments. All right, yes, Jim Mora made some comments on Josh Rosen. We're going to be talking about that for the first segment. That's pretty much going to be like the theme for the first two segments here. Is pretty much, we'll talk more about it so you understand, but we're going to be doing that. Second segment looks like Jon Gruden is trying to build his own culture in Oakland, so we'll be doing that, give my thoughts on it all. And the Raiders have been a pretty consistent discussion on this podcast lately. But either way, we'll be doing that. Third segment, we'll be talking Jerry Jones. He said that he doesn't think there's much of a gap between the Cowboys and Eagles. I'm going to give my thoughts on that. I saw that earlier today. Not really sure, I guess, what I really think about it. So I'll generate some thoughts as we go through the show. And we'll be talking about that for the third segment, okay? And then for the fourth segment, as we always do, going to be talking about whatever else is going on in football, anything that crosses my mind as far as football goes. Like, it doesn't really matter. All right, it's the off season. We could have some fun with it, so we'll be doing that. And that's how today's show is going to go. It's going to be a fun one. I'm going to enjoy it. You're going to enjoy it, whether you're listening on your headphones right now in class, whether you're driving to wherever you're going, all right, or whatever. It's going to be a good one. So let's get into it. All right, so like I said, all right, Josh Rosen. So let's go this way, okay? We got Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. Those are the 5 most talked about quarterbacks in this draft class, okay? There's no doubt it is. The knock on Baker Mayfield, either he's Johnny Manziel 2.0 or he's too rah-rah for everyone's liking, all right? Sam Darnold, what's his problem? His problem is too many turnovers in his last year at USC. Okay? Josh Allen, the knock on him is that he's a little too raw right now. Needs to develop a little bit more. All right, has the tools to become a great quarterback, but just like I said, needs to develop. Okay? Lamar Jackson, his knock, which is ridiculous, is that he should be a receiver and he doesn't have what it takes to be a quarterback, which, like I said, is extremely ridiculous. Okay? The real knock on him is his accuracy. All right? That's what the real knock is, okay? And just because he happens to play a certain way and look a certain way, I think maybe that's why they're having him thinking of playing a receiver. Either way, it's a conversation for a different day. And the knock on Josh Rosen is he asks too many questions. All right? You understand the difference there? One guy in Baker Mayfield could be, I guess he's compared to, which I think is a very lazy comparison. I think he's more so the right comparison for Baker Mayfield is Drew Brees, but I don't know. I feel like I'd be killed for that. But either way, the comparison, the whole Johnny Manziel thing, Baker Mayfield's had to run with the police, so that's there. Okay, that's a red flag, whatever. Sure, before we're going off these comparisons. Lamar Jackson plays a certain way, so he's got to be a receiver. That's a knock. Okay, fine. Josh Allen needs to develop more. Not ready yet. Cool. All right. Sam Darnold turns the ball over too much. All right. The majority of those comparisons have to do with football things as far as ability. Baker Mayfield's, I feel, is more so, his knock is that the dude's just very outspoken. That's perfect. It's perfect. I'm having an epiphany right now. Baker Mayfield, if you've paid attention, there's been no real knock on him as far as his football ability. The knock on him has been whether or not he's too outspoken, he's not humble, and like I said, they're just comparing him to Johnny Manziel. Josh Rosen, same thing. Knock on him is he asks too many questions, all right? Like I said, Jim Mora comes out, and I'm not sure if someone asked Jim Mora on his opinion about it, or if Jim Mora just felt, you know what, let me go ahead and give my opinion on it either way, okay? And I'm paraphrasing what Jim Mora said. Jim Mora comes out and says that Josh Rosen's a millennial. Okay, and for some reason, I don't know why, but people just do not like millennials, the older generation, okay? And I'm not saying every one of the older generation, it's just there's a majority of it, I feel, that just do not like millennials. I'm not sure why, all right, but they just don't like them, including me, okay, in general speaking terms, or whatever you want to call it, okay? So he said that he's a millennial, he needs to be challenged, or else he's going to lose interest. All right, he needs to know why we're doing things and needs to understand it rather than just being a guy who just takes the orders. All right. And for some reason, that is being, and I think Jim Mora more so said it as a knock on Josh Rosen. All right. But that's exactly what it's being taken as. It's being taken as a knock. All right. It's being taken as a bad thing. Okay. Let me spin it this way for you. Okay. Josh Rosen, from what I got, is a guy who doesn't just want to blindly take orders from his coach, wants to understand what's going on and why they're doing what they're doing. Okay? Is there, honestly, ask yourself and think about it, is there a true problem with that? All right? Is there? Is there a true problem with your quarterback wanting to know why you're running what you're running, or at least trying to understand why you're doing it? All right? And wanting to know more? Because there's stories of guys like Peyton Manning in the coaches' room, in their team meetings or whatever, grilling their coaches on why they're running this, what it's for, and all that. Pretty much just trying to understand it. All right. Tate was telling me, because he was more around for this era and stuff like that, telling me how Dan Marino did the same thing. And we both talked about how Drew Brees does it. Okay. Why is it such a problem for a guy like Josh Rosen to ask questions and want to understand why they're doing things? I don't understand. I need someone to explain it to me. All right? And I think it has to do a lot with that whole millennial thing for some reason. I don't know. Like, millennials get blamed for a lot. All right? But either way, with Josh Rosen, it's just, wouldn't you want that in your quarterback? Don't you want a guy who's going to want to be challenged? Why do you want a guy who's just going to go out there and take the orders? All right, me and Tay were talking. It's like Joe Flacco. Who do you compare it to? Joe Flacco, and I think he said Drew Brees. Okay, Joe Flacco. That's a guy who goes out there and I feel just takes the orders from Harbaugh and executes them. All right, Drew Brees, and again, I'm not saying there's any truth to Joe Flacco or anything like that. I'm just saying. All right, it was a comparison that was thrown around when me and Tay were talking about it. Okay. Drew Brees is a guy where he's not just going to have Sean Payton tell him, do this, go out, run it, don't ask. Drew Brees is obviously going to ask and try and understand it. So for a guy like Josh Rosen to be coming out of the UCLA and for that to be a knock makes no sense to me. okay? Obviously, with Josh Rosen, the spotlight's been on him for a while. Remember his freshman year, won a game or whatever, then hangs out in a little mini inflatable hot tub in his dorm room, okay? I don't see the problem with that. And I think there's the whole thing with quarterback needs to act a certain way and be held to a different standard. And I've always thought that was a bunch of baloney, okay? And for those of you that like baloney, when I say it was a bunch of baloney, it's not really a good term. It's not a term of endearment, okay? Baloney is disgusting, by the way. But either way, getting back to the point, and maybe we'll talk about different types of sandwich meats and talk about which one is the best. Baloney is by far the most disgusting thing I've ever had in my life. Okay, but either way, getting back to it, the whole quarterbacks need to be a certain way, and I always thought this way with Johnny Manziel, but I guess it kind of backfired there. Knock on Johnny Manziel was he didn't act like a quarterback. He didn't present himself as like a quarterback. And obviously, the people who said that were right because of the fact that now Johnny's not in the league. Trying to make his comeback looking like he's got his head on straight, but nonetheless doesn't look like he's going to be on a team anytime soon as far as the NFL goes. CFL, whole different thing. But either way, yes, okay, fine. Johnny Manziel, I will give you that. But with Josh Rosen, I don't really see him being like Johnny Manziel. All right, and I think Josh Rosen is the prototypical quarterback. Stays out of trouble. I mean, really, that's the thing right there. Josh Rosen has never gotten into any trouble. The knock on Josh Rosen is the guy he's too curious. He wants to know why. He wants to know why you're doing it and understand it. And I don't understand why this is such a problem. All right? For some reason, the NFL wants their players to be robots. Okay? Wants them to be just like the baseball players. Baseball players don't give their opinions on anything. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm fine with it as far as what baseball's doing. Okay? If that's how all right, just breaking news right now as I'm talking. All right, we're recording this at around 3 o'clock right now. It's about 2:56. As I'm recording this, Brandon Cooks has been traded to the Rams. Brandon Cooks in a 4th rounder for the Rams' 23rd overall pick and a 6th rounder. Boom. We just got something to talk about for the 3rd segment. We'll talk about the whole Eagles and Cowboys gap for the 4th segment. I love you, football. I only just love how that happens. All right. And one thing, too, I've learned doing the whole podcast thing, and I know I'm getting off topic with the whole Josh Rosen thing, but this has to do with whatever we're talking about now. One thing I've noticed, like doing podcasts, because I just started out doing this and all that, is that, well, I've been doing it for a few months, obviously, since around November time. But free agency, all that, it's the best time of the year. You get excited. It's like, oh, I get to talk about a bunch of things. But either way, we're going to be talking about Brandon Cooks going to the Rams in the 3rd segment. All right, but let's get back to Josh Rosen, okay? Getting back to the whole baseball thing, all right? Players are robots, don't give their opinions, and for some reason, like that's how baseball players are. They just won't speak on anything, and I'm not talking about to any particular issue or anything like that. It's just baseball players just will not, they don't give you the quotes that you could run with or anything like that as far as what's going on in the locker room or anything, okay? Baseball is more so keep it in-house as far as locker room problems and everything else. NFL is kind of, I think the owners, the offices, they all want it to be that way, but I think the players are starting to see what's going on in the NBA. The players talk about whatever they want, okay? It doesn't matter what it is. Whatever, if it's an issue, if it's just something entertaining, it doesn't matter. The players are free to speak their minds. And I think that the NFL players are starting to see that, and they don't want to be robots anymore, all right? They want to be like, oh yeah, we're human. We can give our thoughts on things and pretty much talk about whatever we want, all right? And that's kind of frowned upon. And that's going from issues, from locker room stuff to anything going on, or for the Josh Rosen, just questioning what's going on here, trying to understand, okay? They don't want you to do that. And I think the NFL needs to start shifting towards that. But nonetheless, I mean, you got a guy like Josh Rosen who wants to just simply ask questions to understand. Now that's a knock on him, which makes absolutely no sense. But either way, I wanted to talk about that. We're going to pretty much dive into it a little bit more at the next segment, just talking about what Jon Gruden's doing over in Oakland. And like I said, for the 3rd segment now, we'll be talking about Brandon Cooks being traded to the Rams. And we'll be talking about the gap between the Eagles and Cowboys in the 4th segment. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, so for the first segment, we talked Josh Rosen, we talked Jim Mora, gave my thoughts on that, and we're going to kind of continue that theme over into this segment because now we got Jon Gruden, okay? Jon Gruden is, let's see, what is Jon Gruden? All right, Jon Gruden is a professional football coach who coached the Raiders and the Bucks, okay? He won a Super Bowl with Tampa Bay. Those were with Tony Dungy's players. But he also did beat his old players, I guess you could say. Like the players he brought in with the Raiders was pretty much his team, okay? So let's go through Jon Gruden's career, okay? 1998, first year with the Raiders. First year as a head coach, went 8-8. All right, pretty nice for first year. Second year in 1999, he goes 8-8 with the Raiders once again. Okay, maybe you want to see progress next year. Does that. Progress. 2000 goes 12-4. Okay, 2001, the year he finds final year with the Raiders, they go 10-6. So, did pretty well, okay? Won a playoff game in 2000 and 2001. What was it? 2001 was the Tuck rule? Yeah, I think 2001 was the Tuck rule, okay? 2002, like I said, goes 12-4 with Tony Dungy's players, but does beat his players in the Super Bowl, okay? So he's a Super Bowl champ there. The next year, 2003, goes 7-9. The year after that goes 11-5, or actually goes 5-11 in 2004. 2005 he goes 11-5, gets bounced out in the playoffs one time, one hitter quitter there. 2006 goes 4-12. 2007 goes 9-7, makes the playoffs, loses, another one-hitter quitter. And then 2008 goes 9-7, misses out. Okay? So in his 7 years with Tampa Bay, he was barely over 500. In his 4 years with Oakland, was nearly at 600. And in his years total, which was 11 coaching those teams, he's about middle, 550 right there. 540 is his coaching percentage. So he's a barely above 500 coach. Okay. Nonetheless, he's got a Super Bowl championship with him. All right. And like I said, he did win it with Dungy's players, but he did beat his old players. So, I mean, that you can spin that a whole bunch of different ways. I mean, with that, I've heard that story many times. You could spin it to where it's, yeah, he won with Dungy's players, and the only reason why he beat the Raiders because he knew everything that they were doing, which I think is the actual story. Or you could say that he pretty much Steve Kerr'd the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and took over the next year and was what they needed to make it to the Super Bowl. All right, if you remember with Steve Kerr, the year he took over for Mark Jackson, they went to the finals, won that. Mark Jackson had pretty much the same team. It's just a matter of maybe it was just the coach that needed to get him over. Okay? So just wanted to give that on Jon Gruden. Again, he's coached from 98 to 2008. Since then, been in the booth. So from 2008 to 2018, well, I guess 2017, he was not a head coach. All right. Now he's back in the league in the year 2018. What? It's about 11 years since this is the 11th year since he left the Bucks. Okay. Well, since the Bucks left him. And now it's just a matter of my whole thing here, and I'm going to get to the point, but it's just a matter of wanting to build a little background as far as what we're getting into here. It's just a matter of Gruden's an older coach. Okay, Gruden's been sitting in a booth talking football games one day out of the week, getting paid money on top of money. Okay, now here he is from the year, I guess you could say 2009 to now. He's been out not coaching. That's a long time. The game has changed and the game has shifted. Okay, and I kind of hope you understand where I'm getting at here. Gruden's been gone for a while. We're starting to see that now the NFL, as far as head coaches, you want the younger guys out there. Okay? You don't want the John Foxes. You definitely don't want the Jeff Fishers. Okay? And let me see the coaches in the league right now and see really what the little age is going on, if it's a younger coaches league or if it's an older coaches league, because I could be wrong, I could be right. So let's see real quick. All right, so we're going to go with the coaches from last season, okay? Then we're going to check their ages. We're going to see who still got a job, who still doesn't, we're going to talk about the different coaching styles, okay? So Pete Carroll, the oldest coach in the league, along with Belichick. All right, both about 66 years old right now. I think Carroll's going to be 66 in September. All right, with them, they kind of coach like the younger guys now. They get it. They've adapted with the league as it's gone through. Okay, Bruce Arians is the guy who's adapted, kind of old school, but nonetheless not coaching anymore. Jim Caldwell, 62 years old, fired. John Fox, 62 years old, fired. Mike Zimmer, 61, but has adapted. Andy Reid, 59, and you could say he's adapted. Marvin Lewis, 58. Never talk about a man's job, but maybe should have been somewhere else a couple years ago already. But nonetheless, he's still here, and the team's not looking too good. Dirk Cutter, 58. Didn't play well, coach well at all with Tampa Bay in his first season. Chuck Pagano, 56. Fired. Mike Mularkey, 55. Fired. Ron Rivera, 55. But, like I said, kind of an old school coach, kind of like Bruce Arians, got that mixture. Knows how to adapt, but also knows how to rein it in. Okay? John Harbaugh, 54. Might be on his way out of Baltimore this season. I like John Harbaugh, though. He's a good coach, all right? But he's old school, too, and John Harbaugh's an old school coach, but it works for the Ravens because that's an old school football franchise, by the way they play. Jack Del Rio, 54, gone. Mike McCarthy, 53. I don't know. Mike McCarthy could be gone the next couple of years. Todd Bowles, 53. We're starting to get into the younger because, again, these guys aren't all 31 like Sean McVay, okay? Anyway, Todd Bowles is 53. Done all right. We're going to see what he does this week. Sean Payton, 53. He's adapted. Doug Marrone, 53. He's adapted. Hugh Jackson, 51. Has not adapted. He's 1-32 in his last two seasons. All right. Jason Garrett, 51. Kind of just stuck there. Jay Gruden, 50. Not really too liked in Washington, I feel. Doug Peterson. We're starting to get the guys in their 40 now. This is the younger version right here. Doug Peterson won the Super Bowl. Anthony Lynn, I think this is going to be his second year with the Chargers. Yeah, I think it's his second year with the Chargers. And I believe it's second year with the Chargers this season, and they probably should have won last year if not for the whole thing with the Chargers just being allergic to, I guess, winning when it's a close game. Bill O'Brien, 47. You see with his team, it's kind of adapting. Dan Quinn, definitely with that Atlanta team, adapting to the new age style of football. All right, Mike Tomlin, all right, been doing it with Pittsburgh for a while. One of the youngest coaches in the league still. Vance Joseph, young. Sean McDermott, young, took Buffalo to the playoffs. All right, Ben McAdoo, 40. He got fired. That was a whole different thing. That's part of the outlier of these young guys. Adam Gase, 39. Went to the playoffs in his first year with Miami. Tannehill blows his knee out in training camp the next year. Season's over. Kyle Shanahan, 37 years old, has his team on the way up. And Sean McVay made the playoffs after taking what was one of the worst offenses in the league to one of the best offenses in the league in a matter of a year. Okay? So if we let's look at the 10 youngest coaches. I think it goes from Lynn on. Okay, Lynn almost made the playoffs. Bill O'Brien, if his quarterback doesn't blow out his knee, makes the playoffs. Dan Quinn won a playoff game last year. Lost in the Super Bowl the year before. Mike Tomlin's already got a Super Bowl. Vance Joseph still trying to work on Denver. Sean McDermott took his team to the playoffs. All right, Adam Gase, like I said, took his team to the playoffs year one. Kyle Shanahan looks like he's got something there, and Sean McVay already. All right. The older coaches don't do well. Okay. And with Jon Gruden, my whole thing, my whole point that I'm gonna make it all back to is that he's cutting Marquette. He cut Marquette King. Okay, and I think that Jon Gruden is really going at this whole old school football thing still, but that isn't how the league is anymore. Okay, Like, he's bringing in fullbacks and all that, and that's cool if you want to, like, the guy is literally trying to take it back to the late 90s, okay? And it's not going to work, all right? And I could be mistaken. Jon Gruden might know what he's doing. I mean, obviously, if you're cutting a guy like Michael Crabtree for a guy like Jordy Nelson, like, that's got to be a genius move, right? Because obviously, Jordy Nelson is still better than Michael Crabtree, right? No, he's not. Doesn't even come close to Michael Crabtree right now. All-time overall careers, yeah, give me Jordy. But as of right now, Packers let him go for a reason. All right? Him and Aaron Rodgers had a great relationship. We're one nice little 1-2 punch. And now they cut him. Okay? Obviously, if you're going from Michael Crabtree to Jordy Nelson, that's a drop-off. All right? Michael Crabtree was a little bit of distraction in the locker room. At least that's what kind of was reported. Not sure how true it is or whatever, but nonetheless, got rid of him. Gruden's getting rid of the personalities on the Raiders. Gruden is trying to bring in the players who will keep quiet and just play football. All right? And I'm not sure if I agree with it, okay? Because Adam Gase, you see, he's trying to do that too. But Adam Gase isn't trying to run a 1970s style offense, okay? He's adapting to the new age. He's bringing in the quiet guys, but he's still adapting, moving along with how the league is moving along. Jon Gruden is trying to go back in time. You're telling me that's going to work? All right, I know it's just a punter, but Marquette King was an entertaining guy and did his job very well, okay? And I know they were paying him a lot of money, but you were paying top punter money for a top punter, okay? And people say, oh, punters don't really mean anything to the game. Yeah, okay? Let me tell you this. When you got your punter pretty much always putting the football within the 20, like it's nobody's business, I feel like that does affect winning a bit because you're putting the opposing team in bad field position and putting your defense in a great spot to come up with a stop. All right? That means something. Never really thought I'd be the guy who's defending punters on his podcast, but here we are. All right? I understand the whole cutting Crabtree thing. As far as personnel and getting better, I don't think they did, but fine, whatever. You cut Crabtree, I get that. Okay, if he was a distraction, he was a distraction. But I really don't think Marquette King was a distraction. If anything, I think he was a bright spot for the team as far as his entertainment, all right, and putting the ball inside the 20. You got Marshawn Lynch dancing on the sidelines. That's what I pretty much think of Marquette King there. It's entertaining to watch. It's good for the team. It brings up the morale of the locker room. All right, but Gruden doesn't want that. Gruden cut him. That's all the story. Marquette King was going into the team building to meet the coaches and stuff. Reggie McKenzie pulls him off and says, yeah, you're getting cut, bro. All right? With that, I think it's just a matter of if he's not a locker room distraction, you don't cut him. All right? Believe it or not, you need guys like that. You need guys like that that are going to keep the locker room up. I think Gruden is trying to be like this whole thing. I'm the new sheriff in town. You're going to play by my rules. And pretty much, let's say this. If the Raiders didn't have a quarterback, okay, Jon Gruden was the head coach. Let's say Derek Carr isn't in the picture. Raiders got a top 3 pick. Let's say they got the top 3 pick. Darnold goes. And then it's between Darnold and Allen go. I don't think Gruden's taking Josh Rosen. Okay? I don't think Gruden would ever take Josh Rosen because of the fact that Rosen likes to ask questions. Gruden wants that player who's going to follow his orders blindly. All right? And I really, truly don't think this Gruden thing is going to work out just because of the fact that he's trying to go back in time. All right? If he was pretty much trying to get rid of the big-headed guys in the locker room and pretty much bring in a culture where, yeah, it's pay attention, but you could tell that. And again, you're probably thinking, oh, how do you know that Gruden's trying to go back in time? Go listen to the dude's press conference. Go listen to the fact that he said he wants to bring it back to like 1998. That he's not with the technology and analytics. All right, go listen to it. It's the truth. I'm not even trying to knock the Raiders. I really want the Raiders to do well before they go to Vegas. All right, but it's just a matter of Gruden is just that guy where it's not going to work. It's not. I'm calling it right now. It's simply not. Okay, I feel like he's almost starting from scratch here just because he's got 10 years on his deal, which is honestly ridiculous now that you think about it from a business standpoint. It makes sense because Gruden's going to bring in hype. But it's just the whole, it's one thing to change the culture it's another thing to go back in time and go against everything that the NFL is doing right now. Okay? Because of the fact that the NFL, as they like to say, is a parity league, a league of parity. You're going to follow what's working. Bill Belichick has been a guy who's adapted as the years have passed. Bill Belichick is a guy who will play to his players' strengths rather than having a scheme out there and trying to force his players to play into it there. All right? Gruden, I feel, is the kind of guy that's going to force his players to play to his scheme rather than adapt and play to their strengths. I'm very nervous as to see what these last couple of years in Oakland are going to look like. All right, I do not trust Jon Gruden. I think he's way out of his element here as far as it's passed him up. The game has passed him up, I feel. The same way the game passed up John Fox, the same way the game passed up Chuck Pagano, the same way the game passed up Jeff Fisher. All right, the same way it passed up Jim Caldwell. The same way it's going to pass up Marvin Lewis within the next year or two. The same way it's going to pass up Mike McCarthy. It's a young man's league. You need to adapt. All right? And Gruden's not simply doing it. So with the whole, cutting Marquette King, again, I understand cutting Crabtree because he's a locker room problem, but I don't understand cutting King. It's just a matter of maybe Gruden's like, I don't want my punter being this entertaining guy, which makes no sense. If he's not causing distractions, okay, if he's not getting in trouble with the law, not distracting the locker room or anything like that, and if anything, he's making the locker room a little bit like the morale, bringing it up, and he's doing a job putting the ball inside of the 20 for you every time, why are you going to cut him? All right? Cut the bad apples. That's fine. I highly doubt Marquette King was a bad apple. And here I am defending a punter. But there's a bigger problem with this for Oakland, and I don't think anyone's realizing it yet. All right, so we'll see about it. But anyways, that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Next up, we're going to be talking Rams, traded for Brandon Cooks. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. So far today, we've talked Jon Gruden, and like I said, Jon Gruden has really been a consistent topic on the podcast the last couple episodes, I guess you could say. We talked about him, and we talked about Josh Rosen in the first segment. All right, Gruden in the second, Rosen in the first. I enjoyed it, gave my thoughts on it. And now here we are, okay? Been kind of a slow little offseason since free agency and all that, as you'd expect, waiting for the draft to happen and all that. But the Rams blessed us with some news to talk, okay? Because as you know, the Giants are looking to trade Odell Beckham Jr., okay? That's no secret. And the Rams were a possible suitor for him. And the Rams did trade for a receiver, and that was Brandon Cooks, as you remember me telling you in the first segment, okay? And it's just a matter of now that takes him out of the running for OBJ, obviously, Odell Beckham Jr. And I saw, too, that Adam Schefter tweeted out, too, and I never really saw much about it, but I guess they were trying, possibly talking to the Patriots, and I'm not sure how true it was or if it was just a baloney rumor, but they were talking to the Patriots, I guess, about Rob Gronkowski. Okay, and it wasn't like anything, I'm not sure if it was anything serious, or maybe it was, but they were having conversations, I guess, that's what the rumor was. But either way, they end up with Brandon Cooks, and they're getting him and a 4th rounder. That's going to LA. And the Rams are sending over their number 23 pick and a 6th rounder. Okay? So the Rams now have I don't want to say star receiver, but a receiver who could produce. Okay? Had a down year with the Patriots, but I think it's just a matter of the scheme there just didn't really work. All right? But either way, here it is, okay? So with the Rams, you've brought in Aqib Talib, you've brought in Marcus Peters, you've brought in Ndamukong Suh, now you've brought in Brandon Cooks, okay? Me and Tatum talking about these moves, and his thing with the Rams is he thinks that they're doing too much now, all right? And meaning doing too much by becoming the offseason champs, which they very well are. All right, you bring in Suh, you bring in Marcus Peters, who's had the most interceptions since 2015. Aqib Talib, who's a very good corner. When you got a good quarterback out there, obviously he's on the field constantly when there's a good quarterback out there. And you bring in Brandon Cooks, who is now the number 1 receiver for your team and was great with the Saints, was so-so with the Patriots. That makes you the offseason champs. All right, and the way I see it, you could look at it as them doing too much, and I'll always, like, my bar for the offseason champs as far as comparisons are the Miami Dolphins, those years where they brought in guys like Mike Wallace and all those high-price free agents. All right? That is a comparison there. Any team from now on that wins the offseason, I will compare them to the Miami Dolphins and try and see what's similar and what isn't. Okay? So let's figure it out. The Rams had needs at the secondary position. Let Tremaine Johnson walk, okay, and decided, you know what? Let's bring in Aqib Talib. Let's bring in Marcus Peters, okay? The needs at the cornerback position are gone. Brought back LaMarcus Joyner. He's going to be playing safety, okay? So the secondary's fixed up. They have needs at the linebacker position, okay? That is one where I'm not sure if they're planning on Mark Barron being the guy that takes over and elevates them, or maybe they're going to look to the draft, which I very well think they will be getting in the draft, a couple of linebackers. All right. Defensive line wasn't really something I feel that was a need. They did trade away Robert Quinn. I think, if anything, that was good for them because of the fact that they run a 3-4 out there, and Robert Quinn simply doesn't fit into that fold right there. Okay. So then you bring in Ndamukong Suh. I feel that the Ndamukong Suh signing was more of a luxury signing rather than it was a signing for a need. You have Aaron Donald. They play the same position. Nonetheless, you could play them together now. All right. You signed Suh for a 1 year, $14 million deal. I'm not really sure what the plan is there with the Rams and Suh. I'm not sure if they're going to try and ink him to a long-term extension after this, or if it's like, hey, come help us win a Super Bowl real quick, and then we'll figure it out. All right, because they do still need to pay Aaron Donald, or maybe they'll just go with Suh instead of Darnold, which people are going to kill him if they end up doing that, but it's a matter of Ndamukong Suh and Aaron Donald. There's not much of a difference there, okay? And I think you could say that after letting Sammy Watkins go, they did have a hole at receiver. They needed a number 1, okay? And bringing in Cooks, I think, fills a need. And it's kind of crazy to see that, because didn't Brandon Cooks get traded to New England for first? All right. I think New England gave up their first to get a guy like Brandon Cooks, and the guy really didn't do. This is my only problem with getting Brandon Cooks, is the fact that he didn't really do much this year. But the Rams still gave up a number 1 pick. All right. This shows, obviously, the first 3 moves that they made of free agency showed that there's no doubt they're trying to win the Super Bowl this year. All right. But getting back to the Brandon Cooks thing before we get into anything else, okay? Brandon Cooks is now a player of the Rams. And like I said, Tate's thing with the Rams is that they're doing too much. You could see it that way, or you could spin it to where they filled holes and brought in top players to fill those holes. All right? You had needs at the secondary spot. You brought in Talib and Peters. No more needs there. All right? You needed a number 1 receiver. You brought in Brandon Cooks. That spot is filled now. Now you're going to be trotting out, which was already the number 1 offense last season, Jared Goff at quarterback, Todd Gurley at running back, Brandon Cooks on one side of the field, Robert Woods on the other, and then Cooper Kupp in the slot. very good offense. For defense, you're going to be rolling out a defensive line where you could roll out Donald, and whoever else out there. Linebackers, like I said, still need work, but you got a secondary of LaMarcus Joyner, Talib, Peters, and whoever else you want to throw back there. Okay? Right now, I guess you can say the Rams got better, obviously. Okay? Now it's just a matter of if Sean McVay is going to be able to make it all work. All right? That's the next plan. Comparing it to the Dolphins when they became offseason champs and missed out on the playoffs those couple of years, they were really signing guys to big money deals where it wasn't really a need. It's kind of like they had like this draft mentality in free agency, just get the best player available. Free agency, I feel, should be treated as to you fill in holes that you need to fill in. Okay? If you got problems at the D-line, you fill in, bring in a player to play D-line. You got holes at the receiver position, you bring in a guy to take over that spot. Okay? And that's what Miami wasn't doing. That's what LA is doing. Okay? I do like what they've done. Bringing in OBJ, I think, would have been a little bit too much because of the fact that OBJ has an ego. Okay, I think I talked about on Thursday. I said he didn't, but I got over the point where he does, and I guess you could say he is a diva. And I think I should have a completely different version than diva from everyone else. All right? Bring in a guy like OBJ. He's going to command the ball. He's going to want the ball. Brandon Cooks, I think, is more of a quiet guy, going to go out, play football. Okay? So I do like what the Rams are doing. I do think that they are, without a doubt, the second best team in the NFC. Again, I'm just not going to take Philly off of that top spot because of the fact that they won the Super Bowl and they gotten better this offseason too. So there's no reason to do that. All right, so I do like what the Rams have done here. Okay? And now let's head over to New England. All right, why does a team who just lost in the Super Bowl need 2 first-round picks? Okay, why? And I think that we could possibly, and the Patriots, I feel, have always been a team that's been pretty quiet in the draft as far as trading up and all. I don't think I've ever really been a team that's done that. But now it's like you have 2 first-round picks. You just lost in the Super Bowl. I highly doubt that you need to use those 2 picks, which they very well could. But I think it's just a matter of they could possibly trade up to get a quarterback, I think. And that'd be very unlike the Patriots, but it's just a matter of you have Tom Brady. He's got 3 years tops left, I feel. And that's like tops. All right. Dude's like 41 already. So like 2 years, I guess. I don't know. We got to figure it out. But either way, all right, you do need a backup quarterback. You have Brian Hoyer, but we all know that's not the future. Okay? When saying Tom Brady's only got 2 more years left, you need to start developing someone now. And I'm just kind of curious to see, like, this just kind of clouds everything for me because of the fact that I'm not sure how long Bill Belichick is going to be sticking around with New England. All right, but maybe he's telling Josh McDaniels, I'm going to get you a quarterback. That way, when you're ready to take over, you'll have your quarterback ready. Because by the time Josh McDaniels starts coaching the Patriots, which he's going to do, it's a given. There's no way that Josh McDaniels turned down a head coaching job with the Colts to come back and just be an offensive coordinator unless he is just afraid to take challenges. Okay? So I'm just under the impression that Bill Belichick's going to retire soon and McDaniels is going to take over as the head coach. And I think they're going to be trying to draft a quarterback in the first round. Maybe try and trade up with those 2 first-round picks and get McDaniels as quarterback for when he starts as the head coach. All right? I'm not really sure who it may be. You got 2 first-round picks, though. Maybe you trade up with the Browns. Okay? Cleveland's only got 2 first-round picks right now. It could be a possibility if they trade with the Patriots, they get 3. You get the 1st, the 23rd, and the 30th or whatever it was, 31st, whatever it was for the Patriots. Okay? That's a very possible situation there. The Patriots could possibly be gearing up to where, hey, let's use these 2 picks, 2 first-round picks, give them to Cleveland, get that 4th pick, and take whatever quarterback they like there. All right? Because let's see, we got the Browns we're taking. There's going to be 2 quarterbacks gone before the 4th pick. And maybe we see it even quite possibly where maybe, I don't know, which I highly doubt, maybe the Giants could be a spot where the Patriots could trade up. But like I said, I highly doubt the Giants trading down from the second spot, which is it's a possibility though. I wouldn't doubt it. But I do think maybe you want to jump ahead of a team like Buffalo, who is trying to get into the top 5. They've made that clear, which is very, very dumb because of the fact that now they're going to give up a king's ransom for a fifth pick in the draft. All right? But I could see the Patriots trading up with a team like the Browns. Browns see more picks. Patriots see we can get a quarterback, maybe a Baker Mayfield or Josh Rosen. If I saw it right now, it's going to go Darnold number 1, Allen number 3, and then Rosen number 4 to the Patriots. That's a possibility. All right. And if that happens, then I don't know. If I'm Bill Belichick, I'm not giving up my head coaching spot anytime soon. All right. But either way, I like this trade for both parties. It allows the Patriots to have some flexibility as far as what they want to do in the draft, as far as the quarterback position or anything else. And as far as the Rams, it fills up a need. All right. Now you have your number 1 receiver. If the Rams make any more moves before the draft as far as trades or free agency, then I'll consider it doing too much. But for me, they filled in a couple of needs, secondary and receiver, and they bolstered their D-line. And you can't have too much talent at the defensive line. Okay, so I like it there. But like I said, calm it down a bit. Now let's go to the draft and fix up the rest there. All right, but just wanted to talk about that for a bit. Next up, we're going to be talking about Philly. We're going to be talking about Dallas, talking about the gap between them, and talking about pretty much, I guess, just if there's a substantial gap or if Dallas is close to Philly. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. So far today, we've talked Josh Rosen, Jon Gruden, and Brandon Cooks going to the Rams. All right, and for this segment, we're going to be finishing off the last segment talking about Jerry Jones' comments. Said that it was from the NFL owners' meetings, I think, and he said that Jerry Jones said that there wasn't a huge gap. He doesn't see a huge gap between the Cowboys and Eagles. All right, and I just want to give my thoughts on it. You know how for the fourth segment we like to have a little bit of fun, so that's what we're going to do here. I'm just going to talk about both teams and just give my thoughts on it. That's all it is. So let's give thoughts on it, okay? Is there a huge gap, or as Jerry Jones says, is there not a huge gap between the Dallas Cowboys and Philadelphia Eagles? Let's see, okay? Let's go back to last year. Eagles went, 7-9, I think it was? Cowboys went 13-3, got bounced in the playoffs by the Packers. Okay. Next year, Cowboys go 9-7, I think. Team turns into hot garbage because of the fact that one player is out. All right, and Ezekiel Elliott. Then we move on to Philly. They went 14-2, 13-3, something around there. All right. Quarterback goes down week 14, I think it was, week 15, whenever they played the Rams. The guy that was supposed to be winning the MVP this season. Okay. Super Bowl season looks done. They plug in the backup. They still go to the Super Bowl. Beat the best team in football. And win. You see what happens there? One team loses their best player. They go down. One team loses their best player. Still win the Super Bowl. You're telling me there's not a big gap there? Really? Is that what we're really doing here? And I'm not saying the Cowboys are a bad team by any means. All right? But, I mean, let's compare. All right? Philly's coaching staff runs circles around Jason Garrett. All right? The only reason Jason Garrett's still there is because he's a yes man. Okay? Quarterbacks, I got to take Wentz. First year, both look well. Dak looked better. Second year, Dak takes a big backseat to whatever he was doing the year before. All right? Digresses. Wentz elevates himself. Would have won the MVP if he doesn't blow out his knee. Okay? Running backs, I mean, yeah, I'll give that to Dallas any day of the week. Receivers, that's Philly. Offensive line, that's Philly. Defensive line, that's Philly. Linebackers, that's Philly. Secondary, Philly. Special teams, Philly. Okay? The Cowboys are only better than the Eagles at one position. All right? And I don't think Dak Prescott is a bad quarterback by any means. But he's not better than Wentz. Okay? And for Jerry Jones to go out and say that he doesn't think that there's a huge gap, like, what's not a huge gap then? Jerry Jones still needs to figure out what's going on with his defense. Okay? Needs to figure out whether or not he's going to cut Des Bryant, which I think they eventually will do. Maybe you try and figure out a way to trade him away, which is probably best case scenario for the Cowboys. You hope Ezekiel Elliott stays out of trouble. Okay? And you hope Dak Prescott this year is better than last year. All right? But there is a big gap between the two teams. Dallas is a good team. Philly is a great team. All right? Philly is still the best team in the NFC, even after this offseason. Okay? And with the fact that Philly has two quarterbacks on their team who can win games, one who can get you to a Super Bowl, one who very well may win you a Super Bowl in his career, versus the guy who pretty much shut down once his running back was suspended for 6 games, there's a gap. Okay? I think for the Cowboys, if they don't make playoffs, you fire Jason Garrett, and you hope Baltimore didn't make playoffs, and you hope they fire John Harbaugh. The Cowboys got a lot to do before they even catch up to the Eagles right now. All right? Like in the NFC West, right now, the best team is the Rams. 49ers, Seahawks, both pretty good teams. There's still a big gap between the two. All right? Let's see. Where can I go? I guess the Steelers and Browns, Steelers and Ravens. There's a huge gap there too. Teams got better, but there's still a big gap. NFC South. There's the Saints. There's the Falcons. There's the Panthers. The Saints are definitely better than those two teams, but those are still pretty good teams. Dallas right now is a pretty good team, but they're just not near Philly right now. All right? Jerry Jones, I'm sure, is just saying this because it's Jerry Jones and he's got to. But in reality, he's got to know that there is a huge gap between the teams. And that gap has, if only, gotten bigger since this offseason. Okay? Allen Hurns, I like him. Doesn't really close the gap. Don't really think Dallas has done anything to fix up the secondary or defense yet. All right? They've only really worked on the receivers, I feel. And Dallas fans, I'm sure, are disagreeing with me, yelling at me, yelling at their phones, yelling at their radios because they're hearing this, but it's the truth. We got to accept it. There is a huge gap between Philly and Dallas. All right? Dallas is America's team. All right? That is Dallas. When you think of the NFC East, you think of the Cowboys. But they're just not what the Eagles are. Not at all. Not close to it. Maybe in the draft. I mean, even then, so we won't be able to tell if Dallas has closed the gap because of the fact that we got to see those rookies play on the football field. All right? So with the whole Jerry Jones saying there's not much of a gap, he doesn't think there's much of a gap between Dallas and the Eagles. Oh, no, Jerry, there is. That team runs circles around yours. All right? You are not as good as Philly. And that is the cold, hard truth. So, just wanted to talk about that. And as far as Philly and all the other teams, I mean, really, the Rams, Saints, Vikings are the only ones who really, I guess, can step up to them right now. We got to see how all these other teams do. And I do think, with the way I've been talking, I do think Philly is going to be a very good team this season once again. Nick Foles is going to start those first few games. We know how Nick Foles plays with his team. Carson Wentz is going to come back. I think he's going to play well. All right, so let's go through it. The Eagles and Packers, there's a gap there too. All right? Maybe I'm overrating the Super Bowl champions a bit. Maybe I'm not. Like I said, I just think that the Vikings, Saints, and Rams are the only ones on Philly's level right now. And I'll still take Philly over all of them. Detroit still got a lot to prove. Washington, yeah. Dallas can be a team fighting for the wild card. Falcons, Panthers, no, they don't touch Philly. The NFC West, 49ers and Seahawks do not touch Philly at all. All right? That's just in the NFC. As of right now, Philly would be the best team in the AFC too, unless you want to take the Patriots, which I'm totally fine with. We know what kind of team the Patriots are. But as far as this whole gap, and I know this is a rivalry going on between Dallas and Philly, but there is a huge gap. And Philly is by far the better team out of the two. And it's not close whatsoever. So, like I said, just want to give my thoughts on that. Anything else going on in the world of football right now? I mean, not really. Wanted to give my thoughts on the whole Josh Rosen thing because of the fact I think that it's a bunch of baloney that the biggest knock on him is that he likes to ask questions. All right. We talked about Jon Gruden. He's trying to take his team back to the 90s, which is ridiculous. I don't understand that. All right, I understand getting rid of bad locker room personalities and all that, but I don't understand how Marquette King would have been a bad personality. If anything, he kept that team morale up. And we talked about Brandon Cooks going to the Rams. I like it. All right, it's not too flashy. You fill your top receiver need. Now you have Cooks, Woods, and Kupp. You got Gurley and Goff. And your secondary is already ready to go. Only thing you got to really fix up in the draft is the linebacker position. As for the Patriots, would not be surprised if they trade up into the draft, maybe with a team like the Browns. All right, I could see that happening big time there. Patriots very well could end up with Josh Rosen and could make all of, not me because I think Josh Rosen's going to be good, but anyone who's doubting him right now, like very, 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 very not too bright, I guess you could say. I don't want to, not bright. All right, and then for this segment, we talked about Philly, the gap between them and Dallas. There's a big one. Jerry Jones says there isn't, but Jerry Jones is just plain wrong. All right, so like I said, that's going to wrap it up for today. We recapped what we talked about. Thanks for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast. As always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. We'll be back on Thursday, so stay tuned, and we'll talk to you later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.